The coffee maker beeped at 6:14 every morning. That was my alarm. Not a phone. Not a voice. The coffee maker. Marcus had set the timer himself years ago. Back when we both worked early shifts, back when mornings still had a shape to them, when getting up together felt like a choice we were making rather than a machine we were running. He stopped working early shifts in 2019. The timer never moved. Neither did I. I'd get up when the coffee maker beeped. Measure out his 2 cups into the insulated mug he liked. The black one with the dented lid he'd had since college. Set it on the second shelf of the cabinet above the Keurig. Not the first shelf, not the counter, the second shelf. Because that was where he grabbed without looking, without thanking, without registering that someone had thought about it at all. I'd make my own in a ceramic mug I'd bought at a street fair in Asheville the summer before we married. The handle was slightly crooked. I loved it. Marcus called it ugly once in our first year and I stopped bringing it out when he was awake. Our house in Roanoke, Virginia smelled like dryer sheets and something underneath that I could never quite name. Clean but not warm. Like a hotel that had been open so long the staff had forgotten there were guests. I taught second grade at Westover Elementary on Cove Road. 22 7-year-olds who said my name 40 times a day. Miss Ellison. Miss Ellison. Miss Ellison. The sound of it, my name said with urgency, said like it mattered, was something I had started to rely on in a way I didn't examine too closely. In 7 years of marriage, Marcus used my name maybe 3 times a week. And 2 of those were when he needed something located. This is not a story about a single dramatic moment. There was no affair discovered, no account emptied in the night. No evening his voice went sharp and his hand went somewhere it shouldn't. Those stories are real and I don't diminish them. Mine was quieter. Mine was 7 years of being the woman who kept the house running. His phrase, not mine, offered as a compliment once and repeated until it calcified into a job description. Until one Tuesday morning in October I woke before the coffee maker beeped and lay in the gray light and understood with perfect unhurried clarity that I had become furniture. Functional. Unremarkable. Unnoticed until something stopped working. Before I tell you what happened the morning I left, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible inside your own home? Not from cruelty exactly, but from the slow, grinding exhaustion of never once being seen? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. The house on Briarwood Drive was a 1,940 square foot colonial that Marcus had inherited from his grandmother. We moved in 6 months after our wedding because it made financial sense. His words, practical and bloodless and correct. The mortgage assumption saved us $340 a month. I had wanted to keep our apartment on Salem Avenue, the one with the bay window and the radiator that clanged reliably in February and the neighbor downstairs who played Motown at reasonable volumes on Sunday mornings. Marcus said that was sentimental. He was right. I was sentimental. I have stopped treating that as a character flaw. The house on Briarwood was fine. 3 bedrooms, a dogwood tree in the yard, granite countertops Marcus had installed the year before we moved in. His grandmother's curtains were still in the living room, heavy cream brocade floor length, that absorbed the afternoon light like a verdict. I asked in our second year if we might replace them. Marcus looked at me the way he looked at an unexpected bill. Measured. Faintly put upon. Those were Nana's, he said. I know, I said. But she's been gone 4 years. They're in good condition, he said. That was the end of it. I stopped asking about the curtains. I stopped asking about a lot of things incrementally, in the way you stop testing a door that never opens. Not in anger, eventually, just in the quiet resignation of accumulated evidence. What I want you to understand, and this is the part that is genuinely difficult to explain without sounding like I am either exaggerating or minimizing, is that Marcus was not a monster. He did not call me names. He did not isolate me. He was not cruel in any way a court would recognize or a therapist would diagnose on a first intake form. He was simply absent. Present in the house and absent from the marriage, the way a television can be on in a room where nobody is actually watching. He ate the dinners I made and thanked me in the tone of a man thanking a vending machine. He attended my school's winter concert in December 2021 and spent 40 minutes responding to work emails on his phone. When I cried once, October 2022, sitting on the bathroom floor with the shower running so he wouldn't hear, he knocked on the door 15 minutes later and asked if I'd seen his phone charger. I found his charger. It was in the kitchen drawer where it always was, where I had put it, where I always put it. I handed it to him with wet eyes and he said thanks and walked away and did not ask. That was the year I understood I was going to leave. I just had not yet figured out how to stop being the woman who made everything work. Her name was Denise Kowalski. She taught 4th grade 3 doors down from my classroom at Westover, had been doing so for 12 years, and possessed the specific hard-won energy of a woman who had already been through something significant and come out the other side with zero remaining patience for situations that did not serve her. She was 41, divorced, and owned a rescue greyhound named Crouton who was, by her own description, profoundly lazy and deeply beloved. She had claimed the window table in the teacher's lounge the first week I arrived at Westover and invited me to share it without ceremony. I'd been sitting across from her at lunch for 4 years. We started with the professional and worked our way inward the way real friendships do, slowly through accumulated small honesty. The conversation that changed things happened on a Thursday in February, during a late paper grading session in my classroom. The fluorescent light above us hummed its flat, institutional hum. The hallway smelled like floor wax and cafeteria and the particular papery warmth of an elementary school in winter. Denise looked up from a stack of multiplication quizzes and said without preamble, "You look like someone who hasn't slept properly in a year." "I sleep fine," I said. "That's not what I mean and you know it," she said. I set down my red pen. "He's not bad to me," I said carefully. He's not there. He's in the house but he's not there." Denise was quiet for a moment. "I was married to one of those," she said finally. "For 6 years. I kept thinking if I just kept the temperature right, kept everything smooth enough, calm enough, consistent enough, eventually he'd notice I was in the room." "Did he?" "No," she said. And then, "But I noticed I deserved to be noticed. That was the thing that changed." She didn't push after that. Didn't turn it into a project or an intervention. She simply stayed, brought good coffee in a thermos sometimes, forwarded me articles about hiking trails along the Blue Ridge Parkway, texted me links to used bookshops in the valley. She showed me, without ever saying it in so many words, that a life could have warmth and texture that didn't require a man looking up from his phone to exist. I owe her more than I know how to properly say. The money situation was not dramatic. I want to say that clearly. But it was real and it was clarifying. Marcus managed our joint account. That arrangement had begun in year 1. He was better with numbers, he said, and I had been 28 and newly married and willing to believe him about most things because I wanted the partnership to work. By year 3 I understood that better with numbers meant makes financial decisions without discussion and expects the absence of complaint. The boat was $19,000. I discovered it through a banking app notification I'd forgotten I still had access to, a withdrawal from the First National joint account in March of last year. A 2021 Lund fishing boat, purchased from a dealer in Salem. Marcus did not mention it before, during, or in the weeks after. It appeared in the garage on a Friday evening and he said casually, "I've been thinking about getting back into fishing." I said, "That's a significant purchase." He said, "I've been thinking about it for years." I said, "How much was it?" He said, "I handled it." He had handled it with $19,000 from an account into which I deposited my $2,200 teacher's paycheck every 2 weeks. He had also established our grocery budget at $340 a month in 2021. Manageable if you are careful, if you shop with intention and waste nothing, which I did because I am a second-grade teacher in Virginia and I know exactly how to make a dollar work. But standing in the Kroger on Williamson Road running the mental arithmetic while knowing a $19,000 boat sat in our garage unasked about. That was the month the math stopped being just numbers. I opened a savings account at Cardinal Bank on Campbell Avenue the following April. $200 a month, routed through a direct deposit split. I told myself it was simply prudent. I told myself a lot of things that year, most of them technically true. By October I had $1,600 in it. Not a fortune. Exactly enough. The night before I left, Marcus and I ate dinner at 6:45 the way we always did. Chicken piccata because it was Tuesday, and Tuesday had been chicken piccata since sometime in 2020 when our week had settled into a rotation we'd never consciously chosen. He ate looking at the television, which he could see from the dining table. His arrangement, established in the first month at Briarwood, never revisited. I had asked once if we could eat without the TV. He'd said he liked to decompress after work. I was also at work all day. I did not point this out a second time. We exchanged 4 sentences. He said the piccata was good. I said thank you. He said he might go out on the boat Saturday if the weather held. I said okay. I washed the dishes. He watched something with car chases and a loud score. I dried the pans and put them in the cabinet above the Keurig, second shelf, automatically, the muscle memory of 7 years. And then I went to bed at 9:30 and lay in the dark and listened to the muffled television through the wall and felt with some surprise completely calm. Not numb. Not resigned. Calm in the specific way of a decision that is already made and is simply waiting for morning to become action. I had packed the duffel bag 2 weeks before. It had lived in my car since then, behind the driver's seat, under a reusable grocery bag from the Whole Foods we never shopped at because Marcus thought it was overpriced. 2 weeks of clothes. My crooked-handled Asheville mug wrapped in a scarf. My grandmother's recipe cards in a rubber-banded stack that smelled faintly of vanilla and age. My teaching certificate in a manila envelope. My laptop in its sleeve. The Cardinal Bank card. My mother's silver ring with the small turquoise stone that Marcus had called old-fashioned and I had therefore kept in a sock drawer for 4 years like something contraband. At 5:40 a.m., 24 minutes before the coffee maker would announce the day, I got up. I dressed in the dark by feel. Jeans. The olive fleece. My good boots that I'd resoled twice because I liked them too much to replace them. Marcus was breathing slowly beside me, one arm across his eyes, the exact posture he'd slept in since the first night I'd ever stayed over in the apartment on Salem Avenue, when everything was still possibility. I looked at him for a moment. Not with anger. Not with grief exactly. With the particular attention you give to something you are leaving. Registering its shape honestly so that later when memory tries to revise it you'll have the real version to come back to. Then I measured out his coffee. 2 cups into the dented black mug, placed on the second shelf of the cabinet above the Keurig. I do not know even now why I did this. I was not performing selflessness. I was not leaving a message. I think if I am honest it was simply the most accurate record I could make of who I had been in that house. Not a martyr, not a fool, just a woman who had cared about the small things and was now, without drama, walking out the door. I did not leave a note. I did not wake him. I walked out at 5:51 a.m. and the October air hit me immediately. 44 degrees, the smell of wet leaves and chimney smoke and cold morning, the sky above Briarwood Drive the color of old pewter, and the absolute silence of a neighborhood not yet awake. I unlocked my car with the key, it was old enough to need one, and sat in the driver's seat for exactly 1 moment. Long enough to breathe. Long enough to know I wasn't going back inside. Then I drove north on Route 11 toward Denise's house in the Grandin Village neighborhood, the heater coming on slowly, the windows fogging at the edges, my grandmother's recipe cards in the bag on the back seat, my crooked mug riding next to them wrapped in its scarf. Denise opened her door before I knocked. She had been awake. She didn't explain why and I didn't ask. She had made tea. Strong English breakfast in 2 mismatched mugs, and she set one in front of me at her kitchen table without ceremony, pulled her cardigan tighter and said, "How do you feel?" I thought about it honestly. Like I just stepped off a treadmill I'd forgotten I was on, I said. She nodded slowly. "That's exactly right," she said. "And for a while your legs will feel strange because there's no more belt moving under them. That passes." We sat in her kitchen until 7:30. It smelled like cumin and dish soap and crouton, who had put his long gray head on my knee within 2 minutes of my sitting down and not moved it since. Outside the window the neighborhood came awake in degrees. A car starting, a porch light cutting off, a dog somewhere at the end of the block making its morning announcement. Marcus called at 7:23. I watched the screen light up from across the table. Then at 8:05. At 9:12 a.m. text arrived. "Where are you?" At 11:40. "This is not okay." At 2:17 p.m. the one that told me he'd finally looked at the closet. "I came home and your stuff is gone. Call me." I didn't call. I texted one word. Safe. He called 3 more times that evening. I did not answer. I am not proud of this and I am not ashamed of it. I was not ready to hear his voice try to organize my leaving into something I needed to justify or apologize for. I needed silence first. I had earned 7 years of coffee on the second shelf. I had earned 1 week of silence. On the 4th night at 11:23 p.m., a text arrived from a number I didn't immediately place. "This is Brianna, Marcus's sister. I know I'm the last person you probably want to hear from right now. I need to say something. Not about him. About what I watched happen. Can we talk? Please." Brianna Calloway. 34 years old, landscape architecture firm in Charlottesville, complicated relationship with her brother that I had always sensed as a low vibration beneath family dinners without ever quite being able to name. We had been cautiously warm over the years, holiday texts, a shared interest in a particular crime documentary series, one long conversation at a Christmas dinner in 2021 where we'd ended up in the kitchen ostensibly washing dishes and actually just talking, really talking for 40 minutes while Marcus watched football in the other room. That same Christmas dinner, I had watched her watch him talk over me 3 separate times. She had not said anything. I had not said anything. We had stood in that shared recognition like two people sheltering under the same insufficient awning, both pretending the rain wasn't as heavy as it was. I did not answer her text that night. I lay in Denise's second bedroom with croutons' warm weight at my feet and the sewing machine relocated to the corner and the clean sheets that smelled like cedar, and I stared at the ceiling and thought about it. In the morning I typed, "I can talk. Not about him. Just us." She called at 8. I sat at Denise's kitchen table with my Asheville mug and answered. "I need to say something I should have said years ago," Brianna began. Her voice was the voice of someone who had practiced this. "I watched you disappear. Not all at once, slowly. Year by year. And I told myself it was private, it was their marriage, it wasn't my place. And I knew that was a convenient lie and I told it anyway. Pause. I'm sorry. That is the whole thing I wanted to say. I am genuinely, specifically sorry." The kitchen was quiet. Crouton shifted against my ankle. Outside, the November morning was white and still, the street glazed with the season's first hard frost. I had been braced for something else entirely. For you could have communicated better, or marriage takes 2 people, or the gentle, devastating "but did you ever really try to tell him?" The absence of all of it, the plain, undefended "I'm sorry," offered without a single asterisk, did something to me I couldn't immediately catalog. "Thank you," I said. And I meant it without qualification. "I need to tell you about the 3 weeks I almost went back." November. Denise's second bedroom was warm. The arrangement was genuinely easy. She had never once made me feel like an imposition. But I was 31 years old sleeping in someone else's sewing room, paying $600 toward her utilities from a Cardinal bank account that had $1,600 in it. And the practical weight of my situation was becoming very concrete now that the momentum of leaving had settled into the slower business of being gone. I sat in my car in the Westover Elementary parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon, after a full day of being steady for 22 children who needed me to be steady, and I held my phone and I genuinely considered calling Marcus. Not because I missed him. I want to be precise here because the honest version matters. I did not miss him. I missed the structure. I missed the known weight of the treadmill under my feet. I missed understanding exactly what Tuesday meant. I sat in that car for 40 minutes while the sky went from gray to dark gray to the particular deep blue of an early November evening. I called my mother instead. She lives in Blacksburg, 2 hours west. She picked up on the second ring and I said, "Mom, I left Marcus," and she said, "I know, sweetheart," and then she said, "I've been waiting for this call for about 2 years," and my eyes went hot and sudden in a way that surprised me. He told me something I had not known. That she had left my father briefly when I was 4 years old. 9 days, a motel in Radford, the same soup from the diner next door every morning while she worked out what she actually wanted. She'd gone back and they had built something genuinely different afterward, and it had been a good marriage by the time he died. "I'm not telling you to go back," she said carefully, reading me accurately across the distance. "I'm telling you the place you're in right now, the limbo, it doesn't last. You will land. You always land." I did not go back. But something in me stopped being afraid of the uncertainty after that call. Stopped fighting the open, unresolved quality of where I was and started tentatively inhabiting it. I found a studio apartment on Gilmer Avenue in January. $875 a month, 3rd floor, no elevator, 2 windows facing east, a radiator that knocked reliably in the cold and smelled of dust and heat in the way of all old radiators everywhere. I bought a small oak table at the Goodwill on Melrose Avenue. I bought 2 chairs and a lamp and a second-hand rug the color of rust that I liked immediately and did not second-guess. I left the walls empty for 2 weeks because I wanted to understand what I actually wanted to look at. There is a botanical print above the table now. Virginia wildflowers, ironweed and wild bergamot and black-eyed Susan, rendered in careful ink lines and soft watercolor washes, that I found at an estate sale in Salem in February. It costs me nothing to look at it and it gives me something I don't have a precise word for. Something like being in the right place. I brought my crooked-handled Asheville mug. It is the first thing I unpack and the last thing I'll ever leave anywhere. Brianna and I have spoken 9 times since October. Texts in between. A photograph of a sweet gum tree she planted in a Charlottesville garden. A soup recipe I sent back. A long voice message she left me in February that I listened to twice, standing at my east-facing window in the early morning with the radiator ticking behind me. We are not friends yet in the full sense. We are something more deliberate than that. 2 people who observed the same years from different vantage points and are slowly, honestly comparing what we each saw and what we each let ourselves pretend we didn't. She told me in February that Marcus had stopped speaking to her. That she had said to him, clearly and without softening it, that what had happened in his marriage was significantly his doing and she was not available to pretend otherwise. He told her she was being dramatic. She told him she was being accurate. He thinks you left because of the boat, she said. I left because of 7 years, I said. I know, she said. I think some part of him knows too. He just hasn't built the language for it yet. I don't know if Marcus will ever build that language. That is genuinely no longer my daily concern. I hope he does, in the way you hope for things that have passed out of your hands. Sincerely, distantly, without expectation. He is 34 years old. There is time for people to learn things if they choose to. What I know is this. I am 31 years old in a 3rd-floor apartment on Gilmer Avenue in Roanoke, Virginia. I have ironweed above my table. I have a crooked-handled mug. I have 22 7-year-olds who say my name like it means something, and a greyhound I visit on Thursday afternoons, and a mother in Blacksburg who waited 2 years for a phone call and picked up on the second ring. I have a friend who moved her sewing machine to the living room without being asked and made tea at 6 a.m. and knew not to ask too many questions. I have a Saturday morning that belongs entirely to me. It doesn't look like the plan. It feels like mine. I didn't close the door all the way when it came to Brianna. I left it open a crack. Not for Marcus. For the person she is becoming. Someone who looked at a convenient lie she'd been telling herself for years and decided to stop telling it. I think that kind of honesty deserves a door left open. I think she'll walk through it when she's ready. The crack will be there. If you have ever stayed somewhere too long, not because you were afraid to leave but because you had quietly forgotten you were allowed to, I want you to know I see exactly what that cost. Tell me in the comments, what was the moment something in you finally shifted? What was the thing that made it real? I'm reading every single one. I'm Nora. I kept the house running for 7 years. Now I keep my own.